We are in a moment of major movement. In the past year, we've seen creative directors exit, CEOs reshuffle, directors move from position to position. I'm seeing these trends across household name brands and small, medium-sized enterprises alike. But what happens after the announcement? Whether you're in leadership at a legacy house or leading the growth of an independent brand, a change in leadership like this is a vulnerable time. It can strengthen your brand, invite new blood, new energy, new voices, or it can fracture it. And how you navigate this time is absolutely critical. This video is a roadmap. I'll walk you through from a brand strategy perspective, what to keep, preserve, what to overhaul and refresh when new leadership steps in, and how to navigate these shifts and transitions with clarity and care. To place this in a bit of context, the first place that I recognized and identified this macro trend across all businesses and all industries was in the luxury market. We've seen brands like Dior, Gucci, Loewe, these big household names, all reappointing their creative directors and executive roles. Now, this comes as a natural response to the attrition of the luxury market. It's seen a very rocky 2024 and 2025, and so naturally, when we see sales going down, revenue shrinking, and customers feeling a little bit bored or unengaged with the brand, a response that so many businesses choose to take is bringing in new voices at the very top and through all different levels of the businesses to see if these fresh ideas can re-engage the customer base. Now, we could talk about this alone in an entirely new video, and let me know if that would be of interest to you. But here I want to focus in on how to navigate these shifts and changes. Because as I mentioned, I don't believe that this is just restricted to the luxury market. I believe that it reflects a larger trend across the entire business landscape as a result of things that are going on in our world. The biggest risk and downside to these changes, regardless of the cause that led us to them, is the emotional volatility. This is both internal and external. The audiences might start perceiving these shifts, even if they're not super fans of the brand and they don't actually know that there's been changes in the leadership. They will certainly feel, for better or for worse, that the marketing's a little bit different, that the products and services putting out have been changed, that the policies are different. An example of this I can think of is Starbucks. I get Starbucks every once in a while. However, I'm more of a local coffee shop person. So I wouldn't call myself a super fan of the brand, but somebody who definitely engages and is a casual consumer of their product. However, some things that I did notice is their policy shifts. I started noticing these things a few months ago. There are these micro shifts in their refill policy, in giving free water out if you haven't made a purchase. These little things that don't necessarily make or break the business from the outside, but for people like me who have been casual consumers over the year and have come to expect a certain type of services and policies, I definitely noticed. And it was until my husband had shared with me that they have a new CEO and they have new leadership, and that this leadership is implementing all of these changes. Now, for the most part, I'm actually a big fan of the changes, and I think that some of their new drinks are absolutely delicious. However, I have had to clock with myself that if I am out on a long day running errands and going to meetings and I forgot a water bottle and I think I can just go through the Starbucks drive-through and get a free ice water, I have to remind myself that this is now at the discretion of this barista because their policy has changed and I actually would need to make a purchase in order to get this cup of water. Now, does this sully the brand completely for me? Not necessarily. And whatever 1% of good graces that might have lost with somebody like me who really enjoyed that perk may be completely offset by all these positive changes that the CEO is making. However, the point of this antidote is that even as a casual consumer, I'm still noticing and feeling the difference in these changes. And if this is something that is happening frequently, it can disrupt and skew a little bit of the expectation and the associations that we have with the brand, which is the benefit of being a household name. And this is not even to talk about what happens with the teams internally. I am sure that almost everybody watching this video has spent some time in an organization and has had their manager shift. Now, this can either be willfully from somebody leaving jobs or being promoted, or by surprise. And this change can be positive or negative, but one cannot deny that it is something to adjust to. So how do we deal with this fragility, this vulnerability in both the exterior of the business and the interior, and navigate it well and have these things all bolster and strengthen our top line and our bottom line and everything in between, rather than eroding the brand? Now, I don't believe that this is an issue that only these big household names that have all these layers of leadership, from executive to VPs to directors and onwards and so forth, are the only ones dealing with this. I've seen in my work even small businesses, even independent brands going through challenges. This could look like vision drift to founder fatigue to creative misalignments. Perhaps there's not even a person who has moved out of a role, but it's just that there's such a small team that's leading the brand that as they grow in their personal life and their mindsets and values and opinions start to shift, the brand starts to migrate and move with them. So whether you've made a C-suite hire or you are onboarding your first freelance creative director, a shift in your creative leadership forces any brand to ask, what story are we really telling and who is it for? Let's break this into a simple framework: what to keep, what to refresh, and what to overhaul. Starting with the decision of what to keep. Put simply, you should keep anything that is working exceptionally well for you or carries the weight of legacy and positive association. So for my household brands, this might be your mark, your logo, a key color. I'm sure you would have to claw Tiffany blue out of their cold, dead hands, and that is the right thing to do. They should absolutely hold on to that color no matter what transitions their brand makes in leadership. Same with the double C that Chanel uses. This is something that has become so synonymous with the brand that there should be very little that would inspire them to take a look at this and change it even in the slightest. Now, this might be a policy. Maybe you have a money back guarantee that you've come to be absolutely known for. A key pattern or product or SKU that has made up the majority of your sales for years and has become your icon. These are the things to keep. If there's a customer service system that people laud you for, or a location that tends to be a lot of people's favorite and gets a lot of press, these are all the things that you should keep and preserve and protect. It's easy to focus on your competitors or to look at all the new trends going on in the industry and think about pivoting and sliding. And I'm all for constantly reevaluating the status quo and really taking a deep look at whether these things are still serving you or whether you're just falling into old habits because it's the easy and simple thing to do. However, once you've done that deep dive, if you have determined through analytics, both hard and soft, numbers, data, revenue, quantitative data, that these things are working, as well as the qualitative data, the stories from your customer service reps, from your clients, your testimonials, the chatter going on around your brand on social media or in word of mouth conversations that you get the pleasure of overhearing, if these things together are all pointing towards that an aspect of your business is working very well, this is something to preserve. In a sentence, do not throw away what makes you recognizable. Keep the heart, the skeleton, the bones of who you are, even if you're changing outfits. Now let's think about what to refresh. Here we want to intervene in areas that feel stable and salvageable, but maybe aren't excelling. So we're looking at the statistics, the analytics, the data that's very mediocre. Perhaps you have some products that do all right, but they're not excelling. They're not cult favorites. These are the areas that we want to play. And a really great medium to play with this is in your creative campaigns. Things like social media advertising tend to have a short shelf life anyhow. And so as long as you're not putting out things that are going to trigger a large scandal for your brand, you have a little bit of room to play and experiment here. Feel free to play with your tone, your messaging, your visuals, massage things. Try putting out a new product that you're not sure how it's going to land with your audience. Try testing out a new service offering or a new policy with a test group of your customers. All these things can reveal new opportunities for your brand and for your business that you may have never known if you had stuck with the status quo. And if one of those opportunities absolutely takes off, then you've just identified something that would have actually been a huge cost to your business had you not experimented away from the status quo. Now, as somebody who has a background in architecture, I'd be remiss to not mention retail and physical experiences. Now, some retail stores, perhaps your flagship, are pretty set in stone in their layout. However, the beautiful thing about storefront design, retail experiences, even office design, is that the cladding, things that are on the surface level, the veneer of it all, can oftentimes be shifted and readjusted. Not to mention pop-ups. You can have so much fun and play and experimentation in pop-up design and event design. These things are inherently ephemeral, and that's what makes them so special. You can really make some bold moves that are directly tailored for a new audience without having to adjust or affect your legacy brand. So perhaps you want to really lean into Generation Z and Generation Alpha and try a new trendy campaign. However, you have a heritage brand and a lot of your customer base has come from peoples in their 30s and 40s and onwards before. A pop-up or retail experience in a certain weekend that's tailored for that audience would be a great place to test that out and see what the response is like before going through and changing some of your more evergreen platforms for that new audience. And we actually see this happening often around us if you live in a big city with a shopping district. Personally, I live just outside of New York, and all it takes is one strut around Soho or around any place in Midtown in the holiday season to see brands doing this. Brands will almost completely change the facade of their store for the holidays, and oftentimes you can tell that there's leaning into a different customer psychographic than through the rest of the year. The biggest brands who have the most robust financial resourcing will do this throughout the entire year. For spring, Louis Vuitton might wrap their entire store in flowers, and then you'll see it looking like a giant suitcase at a different time of year. This is all very intentional, and logistically it is much easier than changing the entire architecture of their store because they're really just changing the facade, just the outside wrapping. Yes, it is expensive, but this can happen at different scales. Pop-up events and experiences could be a more attainable way, depending on your business size, to do this. Perhaps social media, perhaps your digital, your website. There's so many different ways that we can lean in and explore this. And if you would like to talk through the specifics for your brand, reach out to us. The email and all of our contact information will be in the description box. We would be happy to brainstorm, be a sounding board, and talk through all these different ideas for your business. Refreshing is really where new leadership can shine. Their goal, your goal, should be building for evolution and not for erasure. I love this word palimpsest. It is something that I learned in some lecture many years ago in my schooling, and it stuck with me as I've moved into my professional career. It's this idea of a drawing where people are drawing over and over again on something that existed before. There may be some erasure, but there's always traces of what was there before. When you think about it, our entire world is a palimpsest. I think about places like Rome. If you've been to Rome, you know that they're currently and constantly excavating and digging up what was there before. And it's so interesting to think that we just place streets and buildings and stores and all sorts of life on top of it, but what was below the surface never ceased to exist. And so there's this rich history that is layered with the contemporary, with the present, that creates this beautiful richness to the area and to the architecture, the design, and just the feeling of being in the space. That's the same way that I think about brands that are evolving. There's always traces of what came before that can be very intentionally pulled through. Some things can be magnified and some things diminished, made quieter, that do not serve us in the present. But I love thinking about businesses, and every single project is a palimpsest, something that honors the history while bringing in the freshness and the fullness of the contemporary. The final layer of our framework is looking at what to overhaul. If there is an element of the brand or business that is misaligned with the current and the future direction of where things are going, then it's time to purge. These decisions should not be taken lightly. Once you've gotten all the data to back up your decision-making process, this moment of transition is the perfect time to get rid of anything that is out of sync with the ambition of where your new leadership would like to take the business. This could come from things that maybe were acceptable a few years ago, but in today's social landscape feel problematic or misaligned with how you would like to be viewed and the values of your current customers. Or it could just be something that feels a little bit out of date. Maybe it was really trendy at the moment, but now it feels aged and dated and it's not really serving you. It's just adding weight to your brand initiatives. These could be an internal, operational, systems that are not scaling, visuals that everybody has gotten used to using, but they actually undermine the brand perception. It could even be cultural. Is there anything that you've observed in the business that's inhibiting innovation? If your brand voice, your visuals, your messaging, your tone is beautiful, but it's not believable, it's not connective, it's not resonant with your target audience, then it's time to start to reimagine things. It's time to overhaul. There is nuance on how to navigate this well. For your teams, ensure clarity. Communication is key. Your onboarding process should be robust. There should be conversation and dialogue rather than just top-down change. And there should be so much respect and reverence for institutional knowledge. The person who has been at the firm for many years, even if at a lower level on the corporate ranking, is a great person to hold a discussion with. Those are the minds that might know if something was tried out 5 years ago and it didn't work out, and you can now go and study that data to see if there's a different way that you could approach that change for better and more favorable results this time, or if you can even just save yourself the trouble trying something that somebody else tried before. The key here is to keep up morale and to leverage all the institutional knowledge that's around you and to keep the team feeling united towards the new vision that the leadership is setting. For your customers, create continuity even in seasons of evolution. Your goal here is to signal to those brand advocates that the best parts the heart of who your business is not changing, and that you're actually just on a mission to be able to serve them in a way that aligns with their personal evolution and their growth. Be soft and be slow with your changes. Be communicative in your announcements, making sure that people aren't caught by surprise with any new policies or shifts, and build that excitement, that buzz. Have everyone be on the same team, just like you have internally, but externally as well, where they're so excited to see what is around the corner for your brand. And for my founders, do not rush clarity. Take stock. Bring strategy in early, not after you've made a change and things start feeling disjointed. In closing, leadership changes are inevitable. They've been happening since the start of businesses. We are just seeing a concentration in these shifts happening all at once, which can feel very destabilizing, but it can also feel very energizing and exciting for the generation of creative innovations to come. So whether you're watching this video right now, sitting in an enterprise like Gucci, figuring out how you're going to navigate this new creative direction, or you're a boutique interior design studio who is navigating some personal shifts of your mindset, or a new hire that you're bringing on, figuring out how you're going to manage this business growth and this transition well. Lead with strategy, protect your brand essence, and leave room for new growth. My name's Tosin, and I'm the founding principal of Atelier Oluwatosin. We are a 360-degree creative consultancy that assists business leaders from founders to the director level and everything in between with their creative strategy and execution. We would love to continue this discussion in the comments or in our private inbox. Until then, we hope that you stick around, subscribe, engage with our content, and we will see you very soon.